Now imagine this. The stock market crashes. People are panicking, losing money left and right. But a select few knew it was coming, and they're cashing in big. Now, what have I told you? Those same people are writing the rules for everyone else. Rules for thee, none for me. That's Congress. Today, we're exposing their trading secrets. Congress says trust the system that they built. But what if that system is designed to make them rich while the rest of us play by their created rules? Today, I'm breaking down how Congress trades stocks, the violations of the Stock Act, and whether lawmakers should be allowed to trade at all. And yes, I will even address the name that everyone loves to bring up, Nancy Pelosi. So let's dive in. In 2012, Congress passed the Stock Act. It was supposed to prevent insider trading and enforce transparency by requiring lawmakers to disclose stock trades within 45 days of making them. Sounds great, right? But the reality is quite different. Over 80 members of Congress have violated the very Stock Act that created 12 years ago. And what's the penalty? A $200 fine. That's it. Barely a slap on the wrist. And here's the even bigger issue. The process of self-reporting is fundamentally flawed. It's like asking the player of the game to mark their own scorecard. The system relies on lawmakers to police themselves, and the process is incredibly hard to follow. Information is often misleading, conflicting, or buried, depending on where you look. Now, since these rules are created by the very people they're meant to regulate, it feels intentional, designed to be confusing and difficult to navigate. This isn't just a failure of enforcement. It's a systemic flaw baked in the very foundation of the law. Let me put this in perspective. If you got caught speeding in a school zone, you'd pay a higher fine than a U.S. senator breaking federal law. Think about that. Congress writes the rules, breaks them, and then pays pennies for the privilege to make it go away. It sounds like satire, but it's not. It's the reality that we're living in. But this shouldn't surprise everybody. Anybody who's seen politics over the last 50 years and how it's changed, is it really surprising to see that politicians make laws and then try every way to skirt them? Look at recently, with Biden talking over and over how nobody was above the law. He was going to honor what the jury said. But the second the presidency was lost for Democrats, he came out and pardoned his very son for those exact same things he said he would never, ever do. And that was a quote from the White House. And I'm not just picking on Biden and the Democrats. It happens on both sides of the aisle. But they were literally saying, there is no way. His press secretary said, how many times do we need to say it? He is not going to pardon his son. Now, the Stock Act was introduced as a bipartisan response to growing public concerns about insider trading in Congress. It clarified that lawmakers and their staff were not above the securities laws. It was meant to rebuild trust in the government, but over a decade later, it's clear the law has fallen short. Violations are running rampant, and of course, enforcement is weak. So let's talk about some of the most blatant violations. These examples show a clear pattern of lawmakers bending or outright breaking the rules. Representative Diana Harshbarger from Tennessee violated the Stock Act over 720 times between 2020 and 2021 by failing to disclose trades on time. Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama has violated the law more than 130 times since 2021. His trades included agricultural assets while he sat on the agricultural-related committees. Representative Tom Suozzi from New York failed to disclose over $1 million in trades, including biotech stocks that were tied to his regulatory work. Senator Dianne Feinstein failed to disclose a trade worth over $15,000, which isn't a huge number, and 3 of her senior staff members were also caught violating the law. Representative Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey sold SVB financial stock just one day before the bank collapsed. He's also been linked to other trades that coincided with major geopolitical events. Now, what's the elephant in the room? Nancy Pelosi. Everyone seems to think that she's trading on inside information. But here's what my perception is. She hasn't actually violated the Stock Act. Her trades are disclosed as required by law, and most of the trades in question were made by her husband, Paul Pelosi. I get it. The optics are bad. And I do agree that that's kind of a way of skirting things. But there's no evidence of insider trading or illegal activity. I know a lot of people watching this are going to get upset by that. We've looked at all the trades. We made a video in which we said, look at these trades, and we sat down, we finally looked at it and said, wait a second, I don't think it's glaringly obvious. However, that's not the point of what I'm trying to get across here. Even if there was no evidence of insider trading, I don't think it changes my belief in what the laws should be for Congresspeople. Let's shift gears here for a second and talk about timing, because this is where things get really suspicious. Senator Richard Burr sold up to $1.7 million worth of stocks on February 13th, 2020, right before the pandemic rocked the markets. I believe the high was February 19th. Now, guys, these sales included holdings in sectors like hospitality and travel, such as Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. Now, here's why that's troubling. Burr was the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee with access to classified briefings on the virus. And the question I asked when our researchers were doing this research was, what's the guy worth? Because that matters. If he's worth $1 billion and it's 1.7 million, whatever. But according to the internet, they have an estimated range between $6 and $8 million net worth. Because remember, they have to disclose accounts and net worth in a range. So that's $6 to $8 million, $1.7 million, even if he's worth $10 million bucks, is a lot of money. Now, to make matters worse, just days earlier, Burr publicly assured Americans that the country was well prepared for the pandemic while privately liquidating his own holdings. Again, it's a breach of public trust on top of the horrible optics. Senator Kelly Loeffler sold $3.1 million in stock just before that panic-induced market crash. Representative Nicole Malliotakis bought New York Community Bank stock just before a major merger announcement sent the price soaring. Josh Gottheimer purchased defense contractor stocks right before the escalation of the Israel-Palestine conflict, and these might be legal, but they sure as hell don't look good. Now, before we get to committees, I want you to realize something. There's a lot of ways in which they can sit there and say, well, this happened and this happened. There's a lot of explanations. And here's where it gets even murkier, the committees. It's not just individual lawmakers making trades. It's members of entire committees trading stocks in the industries they regulate. For example, members of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee collectively purchased $11.4 million in healthcare stocks and then sold $13.3 million worth of stock. Members of the Senate Armed Services Committee bought $2.4 million in tech and chip stocks. Now, you might be wondering, what's it to do with armed services? Well, guys, chips are a major component of everything in the Army. If you're telling me for a second they might not have information, at least question that. Let me ask you this. If you're regulating an industry while personally profiting from it, how unbiased can your decisions really be? The conflict of interest isn't just obvious. It's absolutely baked into the system. And it goes as far back as lobbying. These companies can also pay money to these people for their campaigns to get them to vote a certain way. When members of the House Armed Services Committee are buying and selling stocks in tech companies and defense companies, they're trading in industries they directly oversee. Imagine being a CEO and knowing that the people deciding your industry's future also own shares in your competitors. That's not regulation. That's a rigged game. Now, this isn't just my opinion. A recent poll found over 75% of Americans believe lawmakers should not be allowed to trade stocks while in office. This is not a partisan issue. It's about trust in the people who represent us. When they say to us at a rally, I'm here for you, I'm here to represent you, you've got to ask the question, then what are you doing over here? And let's be honest, trust in Congress is already scraping the bottom of the barrel. Every time a scandal like this breaks, it chips away a little bit at a time at the little confidence we have left in our public servants. And I say the word servants very loosely. So what are some solutions to this? Well, one idea is banning lawmakers altogether from owning individual stocks. They could be required to put their investments in blind trusts where they have no control or knowledge of what's being traded. Other countries do it, and it works. For example, in Canada, ministers are required to divest or put their assets in a blind trust to avoid conflicts of interest. If it works for our neighbors to the north, the soon-to-be 51st state of the United States, why can't it work here? But here's the reality. Even if Congress passed stricter laws tomorrow, enforcement would still be a weak link. Let's go a little bit further. And I've thought about this. I believe that they should just be required to either hold government treasuries. Hey, you're responsible for the government, own government treasuries, or be responsible for only putting money into long-term ETFs like VOO and SPY. By the way, I'd even go so far as to say, put the money in treasuries and they'll be paid a premium return. For example, the 10-year rate right now is 4%. Maybe they get 6%. And I sit there and say, why get the return? We want to get away from them, you're going to go make a lot of money when you leave Congress. We don't want being in Congress to be very profitable for you. And we also need stricter penalties. If we don't have meaningful penalties, these rules are just suggestions with fancy names. But then you get the question of Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi. Whose money is it? Who's making the trades? What if it's their kids? You better believe that Nancy Pelosi has inside information and can tell her kids or grandkids to trade in their account. Where do you draw the line? Is it grandkids? Is it cousins? Is it uncles and aunts? Where is the line drawn? The fines and the rules need to hurt, and the oversight needs real teeth. Until then, it's just business as usual on Capitol Hill, and the business has been flawed for a very long time. Now, here's something you might not expect me to say. Do not waste your time and energy being angry at Congress's trades. Focus on what you can control. If Nancy Pelosi makes $100 million, it's not going to affect your life one bit. Now, you might sit there and say, well, that's bullshit, Paul, because she's making laws that I gotcha. That's a totally different conversation altogether. Don't get mad at them just making money. Get mad at the system. Make smart financial decisions for yourself. The market doesn't care what Congress is doing, and neither should you. The market's going to go up and down based on whatever the market's going to do, not based on what Congress is doing. I fear that we live in a society where somebody else's gain means that I've lost. That's not the case. And I'm not trying to sit there and say that Congress isn't messed up in putting laws into place that don't affect us. They absolutely do affect us. And they skirt those very laws. Absolutely 100%. What I'm trying to talk about here, though, is somebody else's gain is not your loss. Go out there. Get better at investing. I'd rather you make 12 or 13% a year by analyzing and learning the process of investing, a disciplined approach to investing, than to do insider trading or do some other BS that gets you returns that are illegal. Go take the high road. I know that's not very popular at times, but it's true. You'll be much more proud of yourself doing so. Don't be angry at people out there. Let's go make the laws different. Let's go exert that kind of change we want. But it's not about sitting here and getting angry at somebody else because they have more. If it matters so much to them that they have to break the laws to do it, then I'm quite sure they're not great people. If this video has opened your eyes to the challenges of navigating a market where even lawmakers have an edge, let me show you a better way to invest. Join our community of like-minded investors who share ideas. They support each other, and they focus on building a future, a financial future that we can control, no matter what Congress is doing, no matter what's happening in the world. Our own group to share our own ideas, the tools to make better financial decisions. Right now, we're offering a 7-day trial at everythingmoney.com, but it's not going to last forever because we're making a lot of changes behind the scenes. So take advantage of it while you can. Click on the link in the description below and get access to everything we have to offer. We have a full site of investing tools, which I use daily, and the community ready to support you when the market dips, because it eventually will dip. It will be the best investing decision you've made all year, even better than Nancy Pelosi's investment ideas. Asterisk, I cannot guarantee that.